Picture this. You're running a fast-growing company. Marketing reports crushing it. Hundreds of leads generated. Sales is also crushing it. Dozens of deals closed. But somehow, net revenue growth is stalling. Sounds familiar? That's because you've built a system where marketing wins by generating leads and sales wins by closing, well, any kind of deals. Nobody's actually optimized for what truly matters. Sustainable, recurring revenue. In today's episode, I sit down with Lars and Theresa from HolyCode, who took a fast-growing company with zero CRM and founder sales and transformed it completely. The results in just 18 months, 5x more leads, 3x more opportunities, 3x more clients, 2x revenue growth, and sales cycles that are 50% faster. But here's what makes this different. They did it by throwing out the traditional playbook entirely. If you've ever felt like marketing and sales teams are rowing in opposite directions, or if you're still trying to win with cold outbound only in 2025 and 2026, this episode will show you the playbook that actually is working. Let's dive into it in more detail and welcome Lars and Theresa. Theresa and Lars, welcome.
Hi, Björn.
Thanks for having us.
It's such a pleasure. Yeah, it's such a cool topic. So having sales and marketing, growth marketing in one virtual room and talking about the entire go-to-market motion, what you built up over the last 2 years. Super excited to dive into the nerdy, gritty details and, of course, talk also about AI. But before we do so, let's add a little context about HolyCode and your role, Lars, on the marketing growth side and Theresa on the sales side.
Theresa, you want to start with introducing HolyCode?
You can, of course, start with you and then let's dig into HolyCode. Maybe do it that direction. It's a bit shorter or personal one.
So my background was always B2B growth in the startup scene, mainly in Zurich. I've been now 8 years. It's 8 years ago that I joined the first startup, back then together with Joel Kapt, who's also known from Picora. And meanwhile, I was involved in more than 6 startups, mostly tech, sometimes food or recycling. And yeah, that has always further fueled my passion for growth strategies and go-to-market strategies. And now the last 2 years, I've been supporting HolyCode, where we had a great team, great success. So this is also how I know Theresa.
Then maybe from my side, I'm Theresa, originally from Südtirol. So where Björn was on vacation last week. Since more than 10 years in the tech sector, startups, and also mainly sales. So sales is my passion. And I worked before in Germany, Munich, and had the opportunity to build up entity for a German company in Switzerland. So that's the reason why I moved to Zurich 4 years actually ago. And then met also Laurent and Nenad, because they were looking for someone who helped them building up HolyCode within Switzerland. And that's maybe also the start where I tell a bit more about HolyCode itself. I think it's quite interesting because it's not the normal way how companies evolved or get started. So it was actually founded due to the reason because Laurent and Nenad, the two founders of Movu, so the digital moving platform in Switzerland, needed tech support. So they needed to wrap up a tech team quite short on notice. Investors pushed hard. And Nenad is originally from Serbia. So he called his friends and said, look, I need your help us build up the whole platform. And they did so. And they did it that good, so that also from the Dine Deal Mafia, some of you maybe heard about the terminology, came and asked for the same service. So it was not planned to build actually HolyCode. It was really based and grew on the need from startups within Switzerland. And the fun thing was that within the first year, it grew out of word by mouth actually for the first 8 years. So there was no marketing, there was no sales in place. And when we reached around 150 employees, Laurent and Nenad said, okay, look, maybe we need to really focus mainly on HolyCode. So 3 years ago, they decided, besides the location that we had in Serbia at that time, to build also the holding in Switzerland. And that was then the step where they hired also Lars and myself to really scale this whole thing to where we are now, more than 400 people in UK, in the United States, Switzerland, Germany, Serbia, and Romania. But in between, there was a lot of work that we needed to do. So maybe we can dig also in where we started.
Super great for adding this context. So let's jump into, because I think you started originally before Lars, or it was when you joined Lars, you started with aggressive outbounding. So kind of classic playbook with little marketing engagement. So let's start probably there. So what did you do before you kind of became the go-to-market dream team?
I think that aggressive approach is more from my side. So I'm more than 10 years in sales now, right? So I really started with looking up companies, looking a bit into the ICP, but for sure it was not always a match. And you just reach out to thousands of people with like the screens on the wall to see which seller is on top and just call all the time. So that was where I was coming from. And it worked for quite some time, but the market changed and also people changed. So I think also, Björn, from your book, it's more in the direction that, more than 70% of buyers don't want to have like a sales, too focused process, right? They want someone that leads them there, but not push them there, because they are much more informed. So when I came to Holy Code, and we had this background that people knew us already. So we had a community, we had events, and this word of mouth, this approach would have jeopardized everything. So there the approach was completely different, to more in the direction of content buyer driven sales approach. And that's where we changed. And I think for every startup, it's really important at the beginning to ask, what is my identity, where I want to go, and also what's my target group and how I want to approach them. It's not one line and one way fits all. That's a really important question that you need to ask yourself at the beginning before even start with anything.
Yeah, and I would add to the equation and please jump in, Lars, from a more marketing perspective. So I think what Gartner already found out some years ago, that depending on, of course, the industries and the product, but it's becoming more and more rare that you have direct interactions with sales. So when I got it right, so that was the fundamental decision or the agreement between the founders, management, and you guys, that the market is shifting more towards a buyer-led or buyer-orientated buyer journey, and then you did the engineering around this kind of central thought. Is that a right assessment, or how would you frame it?
Yeah, maybe I can step in here. I think what we observed were different developments at the same time, internally and externally in the market. So internally, what happened was that, as Teresa said, it was growing word of mouth. So most new clients usually were already in the environment of our founders, Nenad and Lauren. So the trust was already there. They already knew so much about their success stories, about their successful cases. So that was, of course, a completely different type of prospect than if you actually reach out to the market that has or hasn't heard about you. So I think it was kind of logical for us in the beginning that it works so well. People are just ready to use us as their magical resource. The only thing we need to do is send them an email or pick up the phone, right? And when I joined Holy Code half a year after Teresa, what I saw there was quite like organically grown mess in a sense. Like we had different services, different entities. It was not even all under the name Holy Code, but also with different LinkedIn pages, different slogans. Like it was very, you could see that was really it had grown fast organically, but this is not something that people will understand and that they will remember, right? So a lot of work we put into this was really sharpening our brand, creating a brand that's really recognized, that's really strong, that people will know, have a positive association, and will recognize from far already just from the branding. And then what you also mentioned before, and that was like more the external shift that we observed, was the mentality of the people, that they rely more and more on referrals, on trust, on authority, and less on just like marketing as advertisement, cold calls, like the classic playbook in a sense. And then what also happened in the last 2 years, while we created this really strong brand and started to test channels and to sharpening our messaging, our positioning, and our target groups, was the whole introduction of AI, which changed so much. And it was so exciting because literally like every other month, a new tool would pop up that we have to look into and always stay like ahead of the market and make sure we use the newest possibilities. So that made it really interesting in the last 2 years. And I think it was this mixture of internal and external factors that also made this whole shift from us, from first this typical founder-led sales approach with like email outreach and cold calls, towards more and more content nurturing. We have set a whole like very sophisticated content strategy, a content engine with content creation that we would also upcycle and distribute in completely different channels. And then, of course, we need to be super clear about who's our ICP and who's our persona, because otherwise we're just shooting into the space, right?
I think that's a good point. So maybe let's talk briefly earlier about the foundation, because I think a lot of people still hope that with AI they can fix they nearly can fix everything. But I think we potentially all agree that first of all you have to build up a strong foundation. You have to build up a clear ICP, value proposition, personas, etc. So when you look at the success factors, or the basically the foundation of success, what kind of pillars would you describe?
Lars, your turn, or?
I can maybe start. I think the most important decision or realization was of our founders when they decided, okay, this is actually big. We should fully focus on Holy Code as our main project because this has such a big impact. And then they took the decision, even though they're super experienced founders, but they realized the core that they need to build up is a growth team or BizDev team, where they would have those roles. They would have the founders that bring in so much experience with the target group, with their product, etc. But then they would need 2 people as their first hires. They would need a sales expert and a growth marketer or go-to-market expert. And this was really the powerhouse. And that was for me like the most important moment, because the moment we were together in that situation, that setup, and then we could really do so much together, work ourselves through the whole positioning, through the marketing channels. And yeah, I think also Teresa can maybe go more into detail with the different pillars that we find very important to be successfully capturing a market. But for me, that was just like the base, the team, the right setup.
Hi there, just a brief break to share something exciting. My best-selling book, Funky Flywheels, is now available in both English and German. If you are building a B2B startup and want to scale smarter, this one is for you. I filled it with real-world insights from working with over 150 startups, alongside practical strategies to refine your go-to-market motion, enhance your sales efficiency, and accelerate growth. Grab your copy exclusively on Amazon. Links are in the show notes. And now back to your favorite episode.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Lars. If you don't have the commitment from the founders, I mean, it doesn't matter where you go, right? So that's the crucial first step. And also afterwards, from maybe a more technical perspective, I mean, or the first CRM that we implemented was also when Lars and myself started, right? So we haven't had CRM system before. So you don't even need to talk about AI and all that stuff if you don't have the foundation, right? So first, it's not just that you decide which CRM, but you really need to define, okay, how is our sales process even working? So we started with one service at the at 2014, so our first service, so building nearshore teams. But over time, we added 5-6 more services. So of course, we couldn't push them all through the sales cycle the same way. So we needed to really define everything from scratch, which ICP for which service. So really mapping down everything, although we know we have it in mind, but to write it actually down so that everyone has the same understanding, also in the teams, was crucial. And then always iterate. So we tested things. So it was not just assumption, but test it. If it's really then confirmed, then do the next step and then iterate all the time. So that's, I think, really crucial thing. A lot of companies that I saw so far just overstep. So once you define it, just go. But probably you will fail. So it's better really iterate. And at the other stage, it was really important. I mean, then a CRM system, right? But you need to fill it up with data. So we decided for a lead gen tool to fill it up so that that can happen also automatically. Since the last, I think, 2.5 years, we have now over 30,000 client touch points there. If that's not there, we can't use AI. So there was a lot of groundwork happening before so that we are actually now, we are now.
Yeah, two very important points that Teresa touched here. One was really the mapping out of services and be super clear that we don't just have one ICP. It's always amazing if you can start with a land and expand like beachhead strategy. But in our case, and maybe also in the case of other companies that have already grown quite quickly in the tech sector, providing different services, it's so important to create a map where you know exactly which service is for which ICP and what do they need to hear and how to approach them. And this map that we created, I still use it every week till now because it always helps you to get your focus back. And the other thing also that Teresa just mentioned is about the funnel. So before you use AI tools, you need to be aware what is your funnel. And when you have a CRM system, you really need to fill it with like a lot of data, a lot of leads. So you get a huge pot of leads, so to say, and then you can start really structuring them on the funnel, because now we know exactly when you look into our CRM, okay, we have like this amount of leads that's in this stage, and they maybe need our newsletter, or they are not yet in the right moment that they are interested in our service. However, for the other ones, there might be like the right moment to reach out to them again and ask them, hey, we've been in touch before, we've seen you followed our newsletter, maybe some engagement on LinkedIn, based on certain criteria, certain signals that we're tracking online, we can tell that you're interested now, or you might be interested in our solution. So it might be the right moment to talk now. And this you can only do if you have done the base work, right?
I'm intrigued about the map you mentioned last. So how does this map look like, and how many services did you tackle in parallel? You're smiling.
Usually from a growth hacking perspective, when you talk about a map, you always talk about the famous Parrot metrics, where you have basically the whole funnel and you have all your channels, be it more traditional marketing channels, sales channels, or more like innovative channels. So this is like the more classic map that most startups hopefully use, or they should use. And then in our case, we called it our Octopus Map, which was more like an inside joke. But basically what we did was we fully focused on startups, right? Because that's where we're coming from. That's really in the DNA of everyone in our team. And then we split it into the different startup journey moments. So from early stage, scale ups to enterprise, I think we had like 6 stages. And then we did on the y-axis, we did what is the stage, what is the typical funding, what are the typical tech issues, what are the typical goals that they follow in that moment, and what is also the typical tech stack that they already have, right? And then having this like clear idea of which startup is it in which moment and what are their challenges and what is their environment, because that's so important to talk to them, right? And then we added all our services below. So when we started, we had around 4 services, but they were not so sharply defined. It was a bit of a, And then on one hand, we really sharpened those services. We even got rid of 1 or 2 that were too blurry. And then we added new services. And it was, I think, in those 2 years in the beginning, it needed way more work to add new services to our portfolio than now in the last half year, because now we have so much clarity of what they need and who do we want to reach with which service. And then we could really map out in this sheet for each service, for which startup stages is it. There are even services which might be early stage and then enterprise again. And then also write down like what are the typical projects they want to turn into action that we can help them with.
Nice. So when we look at and you already mentioned kind of the process. So what I see over and over is a kind of a classic friction between marketing and sales. So both are smiling. So of course it never happened to you guys. So what did you get right instantly, and where did you potentially tweak a little bit to make it even better?
I have a lot to say here, but maybe Teresa, if you want to start, here you go.
I think it's more on the second part, tweaking, right? Because you just write so nice things down and then on the go you realize, yeah, maybe it's not working that way, right? When you really test it. So I think it was that crucial part that although we often spent quite some time in some ideas, we didn't fall in love with it. We were fine with just throw away and redo it if we saw it's not working. And I think that's really important to move fast and iterate fast. So I think there we were quite good. And also one point is that I experience often it's a bit the silo thinking. So marketing is more in the back and doing all the preparation for sales in the forefront, and then generating revenue. But we had from the beginning a different mindset. So we are one company, everyone is involved in revenue generation, bringing value to the client. And I think this mindset was really crucial to, bring us together as this dream team. I mean, also personally, we are really good connected. And I think that's what brings at the end, value on all sides.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Teresa said. I think the biggest mistake you can do as a founder when you want to capture market is to hire a marketing expert and a sales expert, and then tell the marketing expert, your biggest goal is to get leads in for sales. And for sales, your biggest goal is to win as many clients as possible. Because then you have created silo right from the start and misunderstanding right from the start. And it's not even their fault because they fight in different directions. The marketer will just try to generate as many leads as possible. Doesn't matter about their quality. Same thing for sales. Doesn't matter about the volume of the deal size and how long the revenue will be recurring. You just boost, maybe even with discounts, your KPI about getting as many customers as possible. So here again, the right decision from the founding team was that we create one team, one growth team, and we're all in this together. And as Teresa said, we aim for the same goal. The goal is recurring revenue. The goal is having customers with bigger deal sizes that stick and that can grow together with us. And that really made it possible for us to work together from the first day, because if you follow the same goals, then there's no question of misalignment. But actually, sales is super happy about growth marketing support to reach those revenue numbers. And same for growth marketing. It's so much more fun if you work closely together with sales, you follow the same goal, and you see that whatever you do to enable them, whatever you do to make our brand already known, and all these hacks you can work on together, and it's so appreciated from the other side. And yes, we did also later build up a marketing team and a sales team, but the first marriage we had between sales and marketing was this initial team, and that really lays the foundation. And maybe one more thing to add is that it's also super important for the founders to really be involved in that, and also to realize or to make sure that the team can fail and learn fast. So we tested so much, and also a lot of things we tested. After a few months, we already completely went another direction because we realized it doesn't work. But step by step, we find our direction, we find out what works, and also we're very agile in that way. Whenever we need to make a shift or a pivot or to react to the market, we know we are confident with that we can easily do that in this very strong team and process how we work together.
So when we add a little bit crunch to it, so as you described it last, you should have then the same target as Teresa's team. Did you had kind of revenue, or do you have revenue targets, or what kind of targets do you have?
Yeah, so I think important here is maybe also to know that we would really sit together bi-weekly to discuss the numbers. And we would not say this is the sale number and this is a marketing number. We would just say these are our numbers that show how successful our funnel is and how can we improve them. Or we would even say, hey, right now we need more in this pipeline or that pipeline. How can we do this together to fill it up? And then what's also super important is the town hall meeting or all hands once a month, and really like give the responsibility for your whole team, especially if you're in the beginning of your journey and your team, let's say, is less than 20 people. Everyone should come together and everyone should think like an entrepreneur and feel responsible for those numbers. And yes, we would also look at more like concrete numbers, like how many meetings have we booked, how much email outreach have we sent out? But the important number would always be the revenue. It's maybe also the average deal size. That's like what it really matters in the end, at least for the growth team. And so, yeah, to share a certain North Star.
Yeah, it's super cool to see because I've seen a lot. So I've seen before working with me, of course, kind of the pure number of MQLs and potentially conversion to SQLs. I have seen marketing revenue contribution. It's always kind of a fight between what is kind of recognized revenue and so forth. And then in some teams, I have total revenue for the entire go-to-market team. So I've seen a lot of concepts, and that's why in particular, I'm super curious to really make it this kind of dream team as tight as possible. And then I think targets have to be aligned or have to be the same, because otherwise you build up friction by default.
Yeah, totally.
Let's before we zoom out a little bit, time is flying so fast. You mentioned kind of you have a bi-weekly alignment meeting. So could you just walk us through to see what are the key KPIs to really align marketing or top of funnel and also sales towards reaching revenue goals?
Should I, Lars?
Teresa, you want or should I?
I mean, I can start and you can add. So we have on one side, as mentioned, different services. So we have on a weekly basis also, or we call it capacity meetings, where we also see, okay, what capacity do we even have, so that we can also, based on that, push the sales cycle towards specific services that we have. And then on the other side, it's really, so for example, we use a lead generation tool. So there it's also the reply rate, for example. That's really crucial for us to always measure that and also adjust if that's maybe not working. So it's also test driven. So that's a bit more also on Lars' side, how we reach out, which channels do we use, what's the content, which content maybe it's working better. Then on the second step is then also tracking then the open rates, calling these people that are maybe more interested in our service and directly convert them. Then we have another, let's say, KPI is the conversion rate itself. So from opportunity until it's a one deal. So how long does it take? How fast can we push the deal towards until it's really signed? So you see, it's a lot of different measures. I think at the end, it's quite similar to what you mentioned. But one crucial KPI that we have also internally is for lost deals. So if we lost, for example, a deal, always follow up and really get to know why. What could have we done better to win this deal? To really understand how we can improve our service. Because there you learn the most. Often you're then, if you lose something, disappointed and just go your way. I think here you can learn the most. So that's also a KPI where everyone needs to follow up, get as many information together so that we can always improve our service. Lars, anything to add?
Yeah, maybe our focus, since Björn, you asked specifically about the bi-weekly meeting that we had, and also you mentioned like top of funnel, bottom of funnel. So as I mentioned before, we also built up a marketing team that was like fully focusing top of funnel content strategy, running the whole content engine, and they would work more top of funnel, but these are not numbers that we would look at in the growth team. So in the bi-weekly meeting for the growth team, we would mainly focus on mid-funnel numbers or down to bottom funnels, bottom of funnel. So I don't think it would have made any sense if I would report on how many impressions we have generated, because in that moment, it's all about revenue and winning clients. So we would look into, what are the different pipelines? How well are they filled? What is the revenue we made? How many meetings did we book? So more bottom of funnel and more like sales focused numbers. And how can I, as in my role of growth marketer or leading also the marketing team, how can I support that? So if I see, okay, meeting rate has dropped, what's maybe a short-term initiative I can do for that specific service to push it? Maybe I make a new outreach, or we adjust something also in the AI automated outreach. So there's so many like little screws we can tighten, or also different like more creative ideas we can come up with to push that either short-term or long-term, but definitely not in that setup to look at the top of funnel numbers.
Okay, then 2 last questions. Why did you just set up a bi-weekly and not a weekly alignment meeting? Talking about crucial numbers.
I think we had
have already
weekly.
a weekly. Yes.
Okay, that's a different format. Okay.
Because we were so many teams working in a very agile way and with different overlaps. So in a company that's already grown to a certain size and being internationally operating, you don't want to have too many meetings in every combination, right? Because what we never want is to block ourselves with like meetings that are not efficient and don't lead anywhere. So we also constantly like updated our meeting schedules to always have those meetings that have the biggest impact. And then after a while, we saw like, okay, we can do it bi-weekly, and it's still, it won't make a big difference.
All right. Then last but not least, let's do the 60 seconds most memorable success from your perspective, Lars and Teresa. And I know that you have a lot of KPIs and metrics you improved over time, but let's make it crunchy and crisp at the very end. I'm super curious.
So I think since the last 2.5 years, then the joint we tripled our clients. So I think even more. So that's really a nice number. So we started, I think, Björn, overview of our clients. So we started at one point there, and I also saw yesterday the overview 2 years ago, and it was like empty. So that's really something. And it's important that you make that visual. I think it's also motivation for the team. So that's for sure one point. The net promoter score. So we measure that with clients. So we have that over 60%. And I think at the end, it's all about satisfaction, making your clients happy, right? So that's for sure a nice KPI.
Yeah, and also in terms of what we did, optimizing the sales process, supporting each stage with nurturing strategy and marketing initiatives. So if you look how the funnel improved now, after I actually measured this in 1.5 years time difference, and we have 5 times more leads we're generating now. We have 3 times more opportunities we're creating and 3 times more clients. And I think it's very important to not just pick one of those numbers, but to see that it actually improves through the whole funnel. And that leads to like double the revenue growth that we had initially. Even the sales cycle got faster.
And I would add, without knowing the numbers, because I think this could be a potential last nice loop. It's when you look about the capital efficiency, your kind of combined team and closely aligned team would be much more efficient than you would do it with a kind of classic outbound heavy setup. So that is at least my hypothesis.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So time was flying by so quickly. So it's such a pleasure talking about the modern alignment of marketing and sales. So looking forward to the next step of Holy Code, and great that you spent some time with me and the listeners.
Thank you.
Actually, now we didn't even touch the topics of like different AI possibilities, but maybe we can do this in another episode.
I would love to. So we definitely have a cliffhanger. So you're more than kindly invited to do another one.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
It was our pleasure. Bye, Björn.
Ciao.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Each week, I have the pleasure of engaging with exceptional founders, industry experts, and investors to discuss the ups and downs of early stage growth. I primarily focus on B2B and Gen AI startups progressing from 1 million to 10 million ARR. We share valuable lessons and best practices for scaling quickly and efficiently. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to give me a feedback on LinkedIn or give it a thumbs up. I can't wait to see you in the next one.